political discussion. So we are doing political discussion about the situation, about the scenario that has arisen or that is arising post November 2024 election in United States. And in that scenario, we have talked about relationship of United States with many countries, many countries, and then how it would affect when American first. That is the scenario of the new. That is the scenario that is arising because of the new election. Mr. Donald Trump, he would take oath in next 8 days, and then there will be completely new mentality under which United States would progress. So that is the scenario. Now we will talk about little different topic. That is, we talked about so many things like embassy, and then consulate, and then legation. There is something called trade mission. What are these terms they talk about? Embassy, embassy, and then consulate, and then legation, and then mission. Okay, so when we are talking about these terms, then probably we will start with the embassy. What is embassy? What is this term used for? Okay, if there is a government, if there is a government in a country, then minister of the government. There is a uh, there is a democratic country like India. So India is a democratic country. So in that sense, if India is a democratic country, then there are ministers in the democratic country. And minister and prime minister, they represent the government. Minister and prime minister, they represent the government. Now consider the India is a kind of, there are two terms that is used generally. One is called host, host, and one is called home. So if India is a home country, then ministers and prime minister, they represent India. What about if someone who is living in Korea? Okay, so Indian government, it wants to make its presence in Korea. So Korea is a country, and Indian government, it wants to make its presence in Korea. Then who would represent Indian government in Korea? Okay, so there is another term. We know now minister and prime minister in their home country, they represent the government. Like if India wants to, if India wants kind of its presence in Korea, South Korea that is famous. So then India would open an embassy out there. Embassy is an office that any country opens in another country. So the South Korea, the capital is Seoul, where the head of the state of South Korea, he lives out there, his offices are there. In that sense, India would open its office in Seoul. Seoul. So this office is called embassy. Now, the person who will represent the country, the person who will represent the India is called ambassador. Ambassador is a very high profile person who sits in another country. Now there are two countries. South Korea, this country is called host, and India is called home. Home country and host country. In the country, that is South Korea, home ambassador, Indian ambassador, he makes an embassy building out there, and he sits there, and then he registers himself with the South Korean government that I am representative of India, I am ambassador of India. This is my office called embassy, and I sit here, and I am completely representative of India as far as diplomatic and political relationship is concerned. Now, how South Korea government, he would be interested in Indian embassy if any of the South Korean, like Prime Minister, President, if he wants to visit India in somehow, then there is a political relationship between India and South Korea. In that sense, he would visit the ambassador of the India in Seoul. So ambassador of any country, he represents his home country in the host country. And there it facilitates the relationship of the home country with the host country as far as political and diplomatic relationship is concerned. If Indian Prime Minister goes to South Korea and then there is a talk that happens between Indian Prime Minister and South Korean Prime Minister, it will happen in the presence of the Indian ambassador out there. So that is the relationship more towards it anyone can think of. This is ambassador and this is embassy. So ambassador is known as kind of the embassy is known as the residence of the ambassador. Ambassador is a very big term. Okay, now there can be another scenario. This is the one scenario that head of the state, the politicians of India and South Korea, who will make them come together. These are the ambassadors who sit in other countries. So Indian ambassador sitting in South Korea is known as Indian Home Ambassador sitting in a host country. That is the scenario. Now, what are the other scenario? Other scenario is like if someone in South Korea, any citizen in South Korea, he wants to visit India, then he needs to take visa. If he carries South Korean passport, then he needs to take visa. Then only he can come to India. That is the responsibility of ambassador. That ambassador now he gives the visa to a South Korean person, and with that visa he can enter India. Okay, that is one scenario. Another scenario is there are many Indian citizens, they live in South Korea. Now, if any problem happens in South Korea, then where they will go? If they are in Seoul, then they can come to embassy. That I am Indian, I am staying in South Korea, and I am facing problem out here. There is a right here, or I lost my passport, or I need visa elongation, or something like that. But if there are too many Indians living in South Korea and in many cities, then how everyone would come to Indian embassy out there? In that case, Indian embassy, Indian government opened Indian embassy in South Korea. Now, Indian embassy in South Korea, he opens many offices of the embassy in many cities where Indian citizens are living. Those offices are called consulate. They are consulate. So there is only one ambassador from a country can represent the home country in the host country. There is only one embassy that is available in the capital of the host country. But there can be many consulate can be available in many cities of the host country. Those consulate they kind of they report to the embassy. Then embassy report to the home country. It is like that. Now head of each consulate is called consul. If head of the embassy is called ambassador. That is that is kind of the allocate the kind of the representation of the ambassador which is kind of placed there. So that kind of job is made through the home ministry of the India. If Indian ambassador represents India in the Korea, then he his his deputation out there that happens through Indian government, Indian home ministry. But if any consul is sitting in the consulate in the South Korea, then his appointment, this is the word I was thinking. So his appointment happens through the ambassador. So all consul, they are sitting in the consulate in many cities in the South Korea. They now report to the ambassador, and ambassador report to the India. The consul who is sitting in consulate, they don't have to do anything with the political and diplomatic talk with the host country. They only directly they are sitting there to facilitate the work of ambassador as far as the home citizen is concerned. The consulate, if South Korea has 10 cities and in 10 cities Indian consulate is available, then Indian consulate has to do nothing with the Korean. Maximum Korean person can apply for their visa in the consulate. They can provide the visa with the help of the embassy. But they are mainly there for the home citizen. If Indian consulate is available in the South Korea, They are there to facilitate the living of the Indian citizen out there. If Indian citizen is facing any problem out there, he will directly go to the consulate. Okay, what can be the scenario of this? Like Kulbhushan Yadav. So Kulbhushan Yadav, now he is apprehended. He is in Pakistan jail. Now, if he faces any problem, then he will talk to the consulate. This is called consulate access, consular access. Now, any consular, because consulate, they are there to facilitate the life of the home citizen, host citizen. If Indian consulate is there in the Pakistan, then that country is a host country and India is a home country. Now, the consulate who are living out there, who are sitting out there in the consuls, who are sitting out there in the consulate, now they are there to facilitate the life of Indian out there. Indian, if they have problem, they lose their passport, or there is problem with visa got expired, or there is another problem like Kulbhushan Jadhav problem, right now Nimisha Priya problem in the Yemen. So it is the responsibility of consulate. If there is any consulate out there, then consul would visit Nimisha Priya in the jail as if he is her guardian, and then he would talk to her that how he can facilitate her release. This is the responsibility of the consulate. So consulates, so an embassy is embassy plus consulate, but consulate is only consulate. It talks with the Indian people out there, Indian consulate, it talks with the Indian people out there and makes sure that they live there peacefully without any problem. So this is the difference between consulate and embassy. Embassy is only one in one country and that is in the capital, whereas consulate may be in many cities of the country. Consulate, they report to the embassy. Ambassador is only one, but there can be many consul. Consul, they are for the home citizens out there, not for the host citizens. Anything that host citizen want to know or want to deal with the another country, they will go to the embassy rather than the consulate. So that is the difference between embassy and consulate. There are two more things that comes into the picture. One term is called legation, and one term is called trade mission. If a country has lot of trade, if India has, or South Korea, I should say in reverse fashion, if South Korea has lot of trade in India, okay, consider South Korea has lot of trade in India, then there will be a trade mission office of the South Korea in India. South Korea would open a trade mission office in India. And trade mission office in India, this is, since trade mission office in India, it represents commerce department of that country. If South Korea has opened trade mission country offices in India, trade mission offices in India from the South Korea, it represents the commerce department of the South Korea. Since this is government offices, now they will go and talk to the merchant, traders and businessmen in India, and they will explore the business opportunity of the South Korea in India. This business opportunity, they help the businessmen of the South Korea to invest in the India. It is something like the primary input or the marketing input. The trade missions they provide to the home country. There is something called legation. Earlier, prior to the World War II, there was a term called legation and embassy. There were many countries where there was no democracy. Like France, it was a kind of France empire, a Spanish empire. There were many empires at that time. Then empire, they used to open embassy in another empire. Embassy was very big thing. An embassy, they used to represent monarchy, king. Whereas the democratic countries, they were small and their importance in the world was less. At that time, the democratic, they used to open in other country called legation. And legator, I believe, they used to sit in the legation office. And that was considered as small. And king representative, they were considered as very big. They were called ambassadors. And democratic embassies representative, country representative, they were called legators. So that were the difference. Now post World War II, the monarchy or kingship, they started declining. So the king were not very important, and democratic countries they started rising because of the United States. In that fashion, all the legatory offices they were started called embassy, and legators they became ambassador. So that is the story of now. There is no legator or legation offices. Now everything is embassy and ambassador, because there are the democratic system worldwide has is far ahead than monarchy or kingship. But prior to that, like the United States had opened legation in Denmark earlier in 1800, I believe 1830. 1832, United States had opened legation in Denmark in Copenhagen. And then 1947, that was kind of upscaled, okay, promoted to embassy. In 2020, I believe they opened a consulate in Nuuk. Nuuk is, I believe, it is a town in Denmark, and they opened a consulate. Now they have a consulate in Nuuk, an embassy in Copenhagen. This proves that U.S. citizens are living in Nuuk area. To facilitate U.S. citizens in the Denmark, United States had opened consulate out there. Like India would open consulate in Karachi, India would open consulate in Lahore, in India could open consulate in Peshawar, but India has to open embassy in Islamabad. Under the Islamabad embassy of India, this consulate would work, and they facilitate any life that Indian they are living out there. So this is trade mission, embassy, legation, and consulate. I believe this should help people who are confused with the consulate embassy, and then they can go the respective offices when they need. The big thing here is that embassy and consulate they come under international law. They don't come under host country law. Host country they cannot deal with the ambassador the way they want. Pakistan cannot deal with the Indian ambassador the way they want. Okay, it completely come under the international law. They are sitting there and they work there with the international law. The local government cannot interfere in the functionality of the ambassador out there. If they are facing any problem with the home country or with the ambassador, or if Indian ambassador is sitting in South Korea and South Korea has problem with India, then they can call Indian ambassador to their offices, and they can report their problem that we have problem with your country. That's it. They cannot do that. I have a new rule, and you have to follow it. They follow the international rule. So that is the scenario. Anyway, we will see more in the post United States election scenario in the future discussion.